y'all. Welcome to Benevolence, where kindness matters and all are welcome to the table. I'm your host, Ceci Diaz. As always, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for supporting Benevolence Podcast. I pray that as you tune in every week, you are empowered, blessed, and encouraged to be the best version of yourself. You are tuning into episode 8, Radiate Positivity. And on this episode of Benevolence, I have a very special guest who will be joining me at the table. Our special guest is one of the most positive individuals that I know. I've known her for many years and have seen her grow up to be an extraordinary woman of God. One quality that many, including myself, can attest to is that she radiates positivity. Any room she enters, any post that she shares, or YouTube video she publishes, her positivity is contagious and uplifting. And with all of that positivity, she has a story to share. And I can't wait for you guys to hear it. So without further ado, I have S5.E8 Rodriguez joining me at the table today. This conversation was recorded digitally due to our season of social distancing. So make sure to sit back, relax, and enjoy this wonderful testimony by S5.E8 Rodriguez. Enjoy! Hey S5.E8, thank you so much for joining me on an episode of Benevolence.
Hey, I'm so happy to be here. I'm so excited.
I'm excited too. So before you begin telling us your story, tell our listeners a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. Well, my name's S5.E8. Like she mentioned, I'm from Queens, New York, but my mom's from Dominican Republic and my dad's from El Salvador. So proud Latina over here. Been in Orlando basically forever. So I'm basically a Floridian, but I still love New York so much. So that's basically where I'm from, a little bit of my background.
And what about school? Are you studying, and what are you studying?
Yeah. So I'm currently at UCF, so go Knights. I'm in my senior year, so hopefully should be graduating this year if all goes to plan. I'm majoring in human communications with a minor in mass communication, so a lot of communication here.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. So basically, I've been wanting, I think when we met physically, when we met face to face before this whole pandemic went down, I had expressed to you that, I've been wanting you to come on Benevolence and just tell us your story. I see you from the outside and I follow you on Instagram and, I just see the light that's, that you shine and the positivity that you shine through your social media outlets. And I just wanted to bring you in. I know you had a story to tell and I just want you to, this is your moment where you can just tell our listeners what you've been through, what has God done in your life. And then, just encourage other girls or women, women in general, in whatever way you want to encourage them, but basically this is about you and this is about your story. So whenever you're ready, you can just get started.
Cool. So, grew up here in Orlando with my mom, my dad, and my sister. We all went to church. We all had a very strong Christian background, like growing up. That's something that never wavered, never changed. So that was something that was very huge in my life. But of course, like as a child, you listen to your parents talking about God and everything, and I wasn't 100% there. So I had my belief, and I knew God was God, but I still had my struggles with my self-confidence and who I was, and just loving myself the way that Christ designed me to love me. So that was something that I had struggled with from an early age. Ever since I was about like 9 years old, I had like my first like encounter with bullying, and that's such an early age, like to be hearing those negative words into your life, when at that age you should just be hearing like positive things because you're still growing physically, emotionally, mentally, so that was when I first kind of had my first bullying moment, and it was something that was big on my life. I didn't tell anyone. I pretty much only told like 2 people here and there that I was bullied, and I didn't feel like I needed to open up because since we were all believers of God, why should I tell someone, like no, that's no big deal. I didn't think it really mattered, but it's something that definitely took a toll on me because I saw myself looking in the mirror, and it was hard for me to even be like, I like this about myself, I love that about myself. I more so often picked out the things that I didn't like, and it got to the point where I was kind of like, okay, why am I even here? I'm listening to people telling me in school you're ugly, you're fat, why are you even here? And then at that time we had MySpace. So,
Yeah.
you would see those things virtually online too. So it kind of felt like you couldn't escape from, the negative things people would tell you.
Mhm.
Um, so it got to that point where I was kind of like, oh my God, like, okay, if I'm listening to it 24/7, basically, like, is it true? Do I
Mhm.
believe it? Like, should I do what they tell me to do and just like give up in a way, but definitely took a lot of years to like really like build who I am, and remember that God designed me to be who I am, and he doesn't make any mistakes.
Man.
um and that's something that is not easy. It's not going to happen
Mhm.
overnight, but definitely is one of my biggest things that I've struggled with, is just kind of like self-love and self-confidence. And that's something that thankfully like God has taken me from, and I've realized, you're beautiful, like, I
Mhm.
need to just remember that, and that's something that I remind myself constantly. Even to this day, like even like on social media, when you see all of the people doing on TikTok the ab workouts and
Yeah.
everything, I'm like, dang, I can't do that. And I
No.
just have to remind myself, like you're just beautiful in your own way, and that's something that I definitely had to deal with growing up.
Now, how, like, as you were being bullied, um, like, how did you tell your parents, or how did you tell your mom? How were you
Mhm.
able to, like, tell them, and how were they able to handle it?
That was so hard, and I didn't even tell my mom until like years after the fact.
Wow.
Yeah, like I didn't tell anyone. I didn't want to. I felt like I didn't want to like burden them, with what I was feeling. I was like, oh, like it'll go away, and it never did. It just kept getting bottled up in me. And I told my mom probably like, I want to say like maybe 5 years ago, like, oh yeah, like we were talking about bullying because she saw it on the news, and she was like, oh my God, I can't believe like young girls get bullied and they believe it, and I'm like, I got bullied too, And she was like, no, like it was just like a silence. And I was like, yeah, like I got bullied, and they would pick on me in school, and they would laugh at me, and like even boys would like bully me, and that's something that was hard for her to like think, because she's like, you get bullied? And I'm like, yeah, like it
Mhm.
happens and it sucks too, but um I think that kind of opened her eyes, and like she would be more attentive to me. Like if she would see me, even hear me go like sniffle in my room, she's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "I'm okay. I just have my nose." So I definitely feel like if I were to have told my mom like prior, it would have definitely been a much faster healing, I think, because I would be able to have someone to like really talk to, and it's not that my mom wasn't there for me. I just felt like she wouldn't want to even like listen, because she would be like, Nena, no, like, God made you perfect. But like, she's her mom, she's supposed to say those things.
Mhm.
So that's why I kind of like told myself, like, nah, girl, like, you don't have to tell her. But like looking back, like I would have probably loved for me to just be like, hey, can I talk to you for a second? And just like kind of open up to her. That's one thing that I think I would have wanted to have done before.
I'm glad you're sharing this with us, because there is a stigma out there to bullying, and especially bullying among Christians. You know,
Hmm.
um, I I kind of put myself in the position of like, what if my daughter were being bullied? You know what I mean? And I'm like, what would I say to her? To
Hmm.
try, and it's as a parent, all you want them to do is to believe what you see, like, to you want them to see what you see. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? You want them to
Yeah.
believe what you believe. And it's
Hmm.
like, I can see where your mom, would say, oh, but you are a daughter of the king, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's more than that, you know what I mean? So what do you think that telling your parents earlier, telling your mom earlier of your bullying experiences would have helped, or do you think there would have been something else? Would there have been something else, or is it just, should you have told your mom earlier?
I feel like telling my mom earlier would have definitely helped, because I would have also gotten probably more of like reinforcement, like,
Hmm.
verbally or like physically, like more hugs, more of like that one-on-one time, which I didn't experience that much as a kid growing up, like you're
Yeah.
kind of just like, oh, like we eat dinner together, we go to church together, like we're good. But,
Mhm.
I feel like if I would have definitely told her like sooner, we would have had more of like that bonding experience, where I know I could tell my mom anything, but I feel like as a kid growing up, you kind of still have that kind of thing
Yeah.
where you're like, no, do I really want to tell my mom that like people are telling me that I'm ugly and I'm believing it? Because she would be like, girl, like,
Exactly.
and it's different because like growing up like with my mom, like I don't think my mom ever had like experienced bullying. That's something that's like way more now. It's
Yeah.
a now thing too. So it's definitely something that older generations like have not experienced as much as like now we have experienced like so
Mhm.
much and so often.
Yeah. You know, I'm trying to like think about my past, but I think like my mom was bullied growing
Hmm.
up, but she went through a different type of bullying. Like she didn't have the virtual bullying. She had literally someone who would meet her at school and take her money, and it was like a
Wow.
threat. Like it was like one of those, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, and I remember it was to the point where I think my aunt needed to fought her or something. Like it's very like
Yeah.
they actually fought or something like that. Like my aunt fought for my mom. It was one of
Oh.
those situations, but I don't I don't recall myself being bullied, but
Hmm.
I can recall certain names that were told
Mm.
to me. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And about like my physical, as I was always like a bigger girl than the norm. And I could just recall that. And I believe it or not, since I'm an only child in my mom's side, I do have a half sister. But with my mom, I'm her only kid. She was all I had, you know what I mean? So I would tell her, some things, but I wouldn't tell her the vulgar things. You know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
felt
Hmm.
like it was kind of different for me. And I don't know how that plays in with, with bullying, but I can remember there were certain things that happened to me that I didn't feel comfortable telling my mom because they were vulgar, they were vulgar
Yeah.
and and yes, my mom probably would have showed me a little bit more love, probably would have been a little bit more attentive. So I agree with you. So that's why I asked, should is there something else that could have helped you and heal faster? But I think it is the parent. It is telling someone, and if you're out there, listeners, and you're young and you're being bullied virtually, don't wait like we did. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
tell someone. You don't have to tell your mom or your dad, but tell someone. If you have like
Hmm.
a friend out there who's who you trust.
Someone you trust.
Yes, absolutely.
Hmm.
Take advantage of that opportunity, and yes, you believe that you are a daughter of the king. You can believe that, you are a child of God, but at the moment of suffering, it's like cliche to say, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
So like I
Yeah.
completely get, where you're coming from with that. And I wanted to ask you, how has your bullying, or not your bullying, but being bullied, um,
Hmm.
how has that like affected you now as an adult? So how
Yeah.
do you see life differently, or what are things that you
I
do
feel
differently?
Yeah, I feel like I'm just way more cautious of my words, and not just like my words, but like my actions. So like whatever it may be, like I just try to always be so like encouraging and like the little things. So if somebody will get like a haircut and I notice, or like new glasses, I'm like, "Oh my God, you got new glasses. Those are so pretty. Those are so cute." Just because you never know like what anyone's going through. Like with me, I didn't tell anyone that I was being bullied. I didn't tell anyone that I would just like literally just like cry. Like I would go to my room or I would go take a shower, but like secretly cry and literally just like have those moments where I really did not like didn't know why I was still here, and nobody would think that, oh, she's so happy, look at her, she's smiling, but no, like you never truly know what anyone's going through. So I feel like now experiencing what I've dealt with and what I've been able to overcome, I feel like I'm just always trying to be like a shoulder for anyone who needs it. If I see someone who posts like anything like kind of weird, or if they haven't been talking as much, like I always try to just be like, "Hey, what's up?" Or like, "Oh my God, did you go get some coffee yesterday?" Or whatever it is, just keeping in that constant communication with people because truly you never know how much they need it. Um, because nowadays people, it's so easy to just kind of put on the mask of everything's fine, but be struggling with something so much deeper under the surface. So definitely being somebody who I would want to be when I was dealing with it is what I would recommend and what I would do now, because we all need that one person, and you could be that one person.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Like I said, the reason I wanted to bring you on Benevolence was because, you radiate so much light and so much positivity, and, you can feel the love of Jesus, through your posts and through your YouTube videos, and you're always so happy. And when we met face to face, you tell me that, you struggled with bullying back in the day, and that was something that you struggled with and you had to overcome. And it's like, wow, like, look at how much God has changed you, 180,
Yeah.
and I'm sure you still, go through struggles, because we all still do, especially with,
Mhm.
with who we are, and whether inward or outward. But we focus on Jesus, and we focus on his promises and all of that. So I just wanted to commend you for sharing your story with us. I wanted to move on a little bit with the your whole social media aspect, because you do so much, and you're so
Mhm.
creative in everything that you post and in your
Thank
YouTube
you.
videos. And I wanted people to know what you do, in terms
Mhm.
of your job and what you're studying, because I know that since we are in quarantine right now, there are a lot of people there are a lot of people like, wanting to be a creator, and some people are taking advantage of this time,
Yeah.
such as myself, because, I'm a podcaster. So I am taking advantage of this quarantine time, and I'm knocking out all my interviews,
Yes.
so just explain to our listeners, what is it that you do exactly at your job, and how did you get your job?
Yeah. So right now, like I said before, I go to UCF, and I am actually a UCF social media intern. And as well as that, I'm actually a UCF downtown student ambassador.
Nice.
Those are two like very big, like wordy things, but basically, I was able to get both of the positions just by reaching out. It was so strange to me how I got it. Literally, I tweeted at UCF like before I even transitioned over, because I was at Valencia first. I tweeted, I would love to be part of UCF social media team, and I tagged them, and that was it. Like I didn't think of anything about it. I just tweeted it. And then they replied back and they're like, "Oh, DM us and we'll talk." And I was like, "Oh my God, you're kidding me." Like, no way.
Mhm.
So I was able to like email them, and I was able to become a social media ambassador. So basically, just kind of showcasing what life is as like a UCF student. You're easily gonna be like a face of UCF because you're gonna be recognizable on like their social media platforms. And then the intern position opened up, and she asked the ambassadors like, "Hey, are any of you guys interested?" And I was like, "Oh my God, mom, like, should I do it?" And she's like, "Girl, you better do it. Oh my God, this is amazing." And I was like, "Okay, I just want to get my hopes up." So I sent in my application. And then I was able to get the position, and it basically entails of me helping create content for UCF as a whole. And I recently did like a YouTube video for them, like now in quarantine. So that was pretty cool.
Mhm.
Um, so it's just basically creating content, whether it's like YouTube videos, now TikToks as well, or anything, taking pictures on campus, or just sharing what life is as a UCF student, I think is really cool. So that's the UCF internship position, as well as a student ambassador for UCF downtown, which is the brand new campus that I'm studying at because of my major. So I'm helping out with like their social media right now, posting whatever you see on like the UCF downtown outlet, or just helping come out with some new content as well is what I do.
Wow, that's awesome. So listeners out there, take the risk, tweet something, reach
Tweet
out,
them.
because you never know.
Yeah,
You never
you
know.
never know. No, the worst you can hear is no.
Exactly. And move
Yeah.
on and do some,
Hmm.
find something else. So all my
Yeah.
marketing people out there, all my creatives, do it, you know?
Yes.
So how are you able, because obviously UCF is a secular school. So how are you able to use like your story, and how are you able to use your positivity and all of that to influence others, especially the students on campus?
Mhm. I feel like it's really cool because UCF like allows the ambassadors to be themselves, and like they know who you are before they even like say yes or no. So every time we do something on campus, at the end we're like, "Oh, feel free to follow me for whatever content you post." So I make sure I always say like, "Feel free to follow me for like positivity," and I always keep that in there.
Mhm.
And then I ended up like getting like random DMs from people or like follows, and it's like so cool to get that platform to just be a face. But not only that, but then once they do find your page, you're sharing things that are uplifting and are encouraging them, and are just like being good reminders of what it's like to be a Christian.
Mhm.
Especially in days like this where it's like so rare to find somebody who is a Christian or is a believer, or will just have the title but not just like do the work that it comes with it. So I feel like being able to have that platform and actually using it is something that I'm so thankful to have, because it's something small, but like it is something that God is still using every day.
That's awesome. So,
Mhm.
talking about my alma mater, woo! What makes UCF different from other schools?
I literally love UC.
So do
I love your
I.
school. It's such a great school just because it's so diverse, and everyone, whether it's an employee, it's like a person on campus, like you can just like come up and talk to anyone and be like, "Hey, like my name's Stephanie, like follow me on Instagram, like let's be friends, like let's actually talk." And I've made so many friends like on campus that are like so cool, and I would have never ever met if it wasn't for UCF, because it's such a huge school. And some people think of that being like a bad thing, but I think that's a great thing because it just gives you like more opportunities to like network, to meet other people, to like come out of your comfort zone. Because I can get stuck in my comfort zone of just like, oh, I'm just good at this, or these are my group of people, and that's it. But like, there's so many like other people that you can interact with and just be able to make new friendships. I've made so many new friends, like another student ambassador is like another Christian, and I love her so much, and like we became friends, and like she went to my like birthday dinner, like we're literally like we're really good friends. If you go to like the UCF page, you'll see her face. Like I love her so much, and those are things that like I would have never like gotten to experience. And they just have so many different opportunities for students, which I think is great. Being able to just ask, hey, is there opportunity for me to do this, and they'll make you do that. They'll get you to where you want to go.
That's good. So, what
Mm-hmm.
would you suggest for a student who's an introvert, shy, and but wants to get plugged in? Because I'll be honest to say,
Mm-hmm.
when I had my experience I graduated in 2015, so it was 5 years ago. But I had a child at the time, but before that, before Victoria, like I was one of those that I went to campus, took my class, went home. Because even though people might say that, oh, Ceci is very like alive and I'm an extrovert. No, I am shy, and I do not like like that whole approach, that whole networking
Mm-hmm.
aspect. Oh my God, that's like, it's really, really hard for me, and it's a challenge. So what
Mm-hmm.
would you what would you say or advise to those that are introverts, even if they don't go to UCF, but they want to get
Mm-hmm.
plugged in? Like, what would you tell them?
Honestly, you just have to put yourself out there, because I like with certain things that I get shy too. Like I'm not 100% like always like in your face, like, hey, let's be friends. Like sometimes I'm just like, no, but like what if they just don't like me? Or like what if they just like are not in the mood today to talk? But I don't know, like something about there's like that feeling, that like thrill of like when you first have to like actually do it. It's like, oh my god, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. And once you overcome that, like it's easy. Like you just have to take that first step. And once you take that first step, like you're swimming, like you're good. You don't have to worry about anything else. I just have to say, take that first step, because after that first step, like you'll start running. Like don't worry about it.
True. I agree because
Mhm.
like for benevolence, it's a matter of reaching out to people. And I feel like this season I've you know, gone beyond the circle a little bit, you know, and I don't know, everybody said yes so far, so I'm just really grateful about that. But there
Yes.
have been moments where I've reached out to people and there's been a no, and I was devastated, and I was like, I'm not doing benevolence ever again, you know. But you can't, and it's true what you said. Like, there's an adrenaline rush, right? Like that moment right before you say, I'm gonna do it. Like, I remember preparing a whole nice email to send out to this influencer. And I was like, you know what? Even if she says no, I'm gonna send this email anyway. And I remember I was like, ah!
Like shaking.
And I hit send, and you know, it was like, it was it. It was out. That's it. You know, I exposed myself. Obviously, she said that the moment wasn't the right time. So she was like booked for like the next 6 months or whatever. But I, you know, I took that. I was like, but good. I got that over with.
You did it. Yeah.
So me from that moment on to reach out to other people. So yes, definitely take on that risk. So for our creatives, because you are a creator, girl, you know, for our creatives, what word of advice would you give to those that want to follow in the same career? So basically, if you can mention your bachelor's degree or your track, and then like, what word of advice would you give to those who want to follow in that same track?
Yeah. So being a human communication major, that sounds like something that's so broad. And there's so many like different areas of interest and different paths that you can actually take. And I feel like since it's so broad, people can get like intimidated by that and they'd be like, oh, like it's full, you know, like there's no space for me. Like it's full capacity, but it's never full capacity. Like if God placed in you that passion and that desire for something, and you know that like God gave you a calling and that's what you're called to do, like he will open up the doors that you didn't even know existed. Like as long as you just continue in that path that God like laid out for you, like he will open the doors and he'll open windows for you. Like you just have to follow it because there is going to be that space, and it's not going to be, you know, the first day you graduate and you're going to get an opportunity, but you just have to be persistent and actually continue on what God called you to do. And you'll see like his hand just open and just do things that stir up things that you didn't even know were going to be stirred up. And I've seen it happen, and you just have to continue and trust in him.
That's good. That's so good. My next question would be that, you know, social media influencers, they're constantly on the rise. Like that's like a no given. There's a new influencer popping out probably every minute with a YouTube channel, podcast, and Instagram, some entrepreneurship, some business, you know. But how can a Christian stand out against the mold and really make a difference as an influencer or a creative?
Yeah. Like you said, there's literally so many different social media influencers, and they all kind of have their area, whether it's like beauty or fashion or lifestyle. I feel like as a Christian, you have to stand out by just standing firm in what you believe in and not forgetting that if it wasn't for God, like bringing you to where you're at right now, you wouldn't be there. That's what makes us kind of different from everyone else, because everyone else thinks it's like a man-made talent or a man-made, you know, creative, you know, I'm able to draw really good, look at what I can do. But like as a Christian creative, you know, you have to realize like God gave you the platform, God gave you the ability and the talent that others may not have in that way. But with you, you just have to be mindful of the fact that if God gave it to you, be sure that at the end of the day, like the glory belongs to him.
Amen.
And that's one way that, you know, we have to make a difference in that and really stand firm in that, because, you know, I don't know how to like do like podcast things. Like that's all you, girl. Like, you know, and that's glory to God for that. Like that's something that, you know, that you stand out because you're giving people like a platform to just like be authentically themselves. And, you know, remember, you know, like God is here. God created this. God is in the midst of this. And, you know, stand firm in that and remember that, you know, we're all called for our different passions. And if it wasn't for God, we wouldn't even like have those passions and talents.
That's really good. That's so good. All right. To finalize our conversation and our episode, I want to go back to like you and you personally and what you've been through. So, how are you able to stay positive and in moments where insecurity starts to seep in, what sustains you?
Yeah. I feel like it can get really hard to stay positive if you're surrounded by negative people. If you want to be able to have a positive life or just like a positive outlook on things, you just really have to be mindful of who you're surrounding yourself with.
Hmm.
Because back, obviously, in elementary school, like I didn't have a choice of who I was surrounding myself with because, like, it was just the class I was in. It was unfortunate, but at the end of the day, like, I was able to grow stronger from that and now be able to hopefully like help somebody who may feel that way now too. So I'm able to stay positive just by remembering what I've been through and how I felt in that moment. And remembering like that position and how I felt and how I really did not have any like desire to continue forward. That's what like motivates me to just be positive. And when I feel like I may get insecurities here and there, because I get them, like
We all
we
do.
all get them. Yeah, I feel like what sustains me is being able to be around people who truly like love me and remind me, even when I slip up and I'm like, oh, I just made this like video, like I don't know how I feel. They'll be like, no, girl, like it's so good. Like that little boost is like sometimes all that you need to be like, you know what? Yeah, you're right.
Mhm.
And not let that constant battle over like win. Because your mind is something that's so powerful and you have to remember to take control of those negative thoughts and insecurities because if not then they'll overtake you, but you're stronger and everything that God has allowed you to go through will just make you stronger at the end of the day to overcome
That's good. Thank you. And my final question for you would be, what advice would you give to listeners like who have been bullied or are still
it.
affected by, the past, or maybe they're still being bullied? Because I do have some young people, listening into
Hmm.
benevolence and, they're still in high school and stuff and they're being virtually bullied. Whether it be in family, because sometimes family,
Hmm.
sometimes cousins, brothers, sisters, even our parents sometimes, job,
Hmm.
school, social media. So what advice would you give to them to cope through this time, to go through this time, or how to heal?
Yeah. I feel like you just first have to acknowledge how you feel, because you can't push everything under the rug.
Hmm.
Pushing it under the rug is not gonna, it's not healthy and it's not gonna help you. That's something that I had to learn. I had to learn to open up, to tell someone, like, hey, I'm going through this or I'm feeling this way, and really confide in God because God does not make any mistakes when it comes to you, when it comes to me. He made you just the way you are, and we just have to remember that if you're being bullied right now, stand in God's word because God has so many promises over your life, and it's difficult at the time. Trust
Hmm.
me, it's so difficult, and you feel like I'm never gonna get out of this, like this is it, like this is what my life is, or this is what I am, I'm hearing this nonstop, like they're right, and it's so easy to feel like you have to feel defeated. But there is light at the end of the day. You don't have to listen to what they say because they have no say into who you are because they didn't create you, they didn't call you. They have no say into who you are. The only person that does is God. And reading his word, and I have a specific verse that I was gonna share too, we have to remember that God calls us and God made us all beautiful. And those words are so cliche, especially if you're like in the moment of like hearing all of these negativity. But it's the truth. And the verse itself, I think I have it here, um, is Psalm 62, 5 to 6. And it mentions is, yes, my soul finds rest in God. My hope comes from him. Truly, he is my rock and my salvation. He is my fortress, and I will not be shaken. Um, when we feel like we don't have any hope for the future, we have to remember that God is the before, during, and after. Like, he is all that we need. We don't have to listen to what the negativity comes from other people, whether it's your family, whether it's your job, whether it's your classmates, people will say things that they don't mean,
Hmm.
and words do hurt.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's just being able to make that conscious decision of not listening and not paying attention to them, because um like in Proverbs 31:25, it's the number one verse that I think every woman should know. She is clothed in strength and dignity and laughs without fear of the future. Those are just two Bible verses that I think would encourage someone, and just be my advice to those that are struggling with bullying and self love and confidence, to remember, we are who God called us to be.
Mhm.
And whoever has anything negative besides that, like, just put the headphones on and just listen to God, because He's the pilot of everything and He knows who He called you to be.
Amen. You go, girl. Well, Stephanie, I just want to thank you so much for sharing your heart with us, sharing your story with us.
Mhm.
I love you, girl. I'm so proud of you. I'm always,
Love you too. Thank you.
rooting in your corner. I follow you. I believe in you and everything that you do. And I'm just so happy that, that you're here and you shared your
Mhm.
story and what you do at work. And I'm just know that God is going to take, everything that you've been through, and it's going to take, the creativity that you have, and he is just going to prosper you, and he's going to lift you up, and he's going to bring you to new
Amen.
platforms, and you're just going to be doing great things. So I believe in you, girl. And
Thank you.
just thank you for sharing to our listeners.
Thank you for inviting me. This was so great.
Of course, of course. Well, there you have it. Stephanie, thank you so much for joining me at the table today. Thank you for sharing your story with us. We live in a world where not only do people deal with physical bullying, but cyberbullying is major during these times. And one thing that I wanted to share with you is that cyberbullying can include sharing personal or private information about someone else, causing embarrassment or humiliation. Some cyberbullying crosses the line into unlawful or criminal behavior. Here are some examples. Posting comments or rumors about someone online that are mean, hurtful, or embarrassing, threatening to hurt someone or telling them to kill themselves, posting mean or hurtful pictures or videos, pretending to be someone else, so pretty much catfishing, posting mean or hateful names in regards to race, religion, or ethnicity, or personal characteristics, creating mean or hurtful web pages about someone. Those are just some examples of what cyberbullying can entail. So if you or someone is being bullied or cyberbullied especially, please do not hesitate to find someone that you trust and tell them about it. I know, you could feel embarrassed, you can feel very vulnerable, and you kind of feel like you're going to get in trouble either by your parents or your friends are going to tease you or whatever. But I mean, it's just a temporary pain. And you want to make sure that you nip it in the butt as much as you can and as quickly as you can. If you don't want to talk about it with anyone, you can also go to stopbullying.gov for more specific information on bullying and cyberbullying, and they have a hotline there that you can talk to someone. So please do not suffer in silence. I'm here for you, and I'm always praying for you guys. And thank you all for tuning into Benevolence, where kindness matters and all are welcome to the table. Make sure to follow me on Instagram at Benevolence Podcast, or my personal Instagram at IamCeciDiaz, to know a little bit more about me and Benevolence. Benevolence Podcast is available on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, TuneIn, iHeart, and the Stitcher app. Stay tuned for our new Benevolent Wednesday feature, where different women share their story of what God has done in their life. And finally, stay tuned for next Monday's episode of Benevolence. You don't want to miss it. Bye!